Well, so after first part, I want to cover a few more topics from the introduction to economics. And in this video, we're going to cover the second part of the chapter regarding what is economics. These are the basic ideas that we have to clear in our minds before starting the real subject in chapter 2 or chapter onward. And we see here, let's share with you the part second. So part second is starting with an idea that there is one concept in economics, we call it as a production possibility frontier. We define this model with assumptions that everything is constant. We only take two products or any things that an economy can produce, and we construct a boundary or a frontier. That boundary or a frontier gives us the idea that what combinations of these two products an economy can produce utilizing all their resources. So that's a basic idea behind production possibility frontier. So production possibility frontier or production possibility boundary explains the idea what we discussed in the first part about scarcity, about choices, and opportunity cost. So all the three things combined together in this one first model, and that model is production possibility frontier or production possibility boundary. Now, you see that we take here two goods. One is investment goods and the other one is consumption goods. So we can take any two goods like a car or a meat or any two goods. And if we utilize all our resources, we can produce maximum this much of investment goods. And if we utilize all our resources to produce consumption goods, we can produce this much quantity of consumption goods. And as you remember that when we discussed the opportunity cost between a bicycle path and the repair of the roads, we construct a line, and that line is a budget line. So here we are constructing not a budget line, but a production possibility frontier, that what is possible that we can produce. And this production possibility frontier or a boundary gives us that what combinations of these two goods are possible with the available resources, with an available technology. So you see this purple line is defining that boundary. Now this boundary, why we are saying it's a boundary, because it's a clear demarcation or clear distinction between the combinations which are possible, and that's why we are using the word production possibility frontier. And there are some combinations which are not possible. Like if you look at this figure, the point E is reflecting a combination of in consumption good and investment good, which is unattainable, which we cannot produce that much combinations of these two goods. Similarly, point F is also not possible to get it. And we call it as an unattainable. But if we look at the point A, B, and C, so these are all possible combinations for these two goods an economy can produce. We are assuming certain things here that the economy is simple. They are only taking care of two goods, and the rest of the things are constant. That's not. But we also see one combination which is at point D combination, which is which we call it as an attainable, but we call it as an inefficient. Why we are saying it is an inefficient combination? Because there is a possibility that we can produce more of both the goods, or we can produce more of one good without reducing the other of the good. So in that case, we see that there is the resources are not using efficiently, and we call it as an inefficient combination. So if we apply this model for countries, like there are some countries, those who are producing goods on this curve, like they are utilizing their all resources efficiently, and we are on this curve. But some countries are not using their, or societies or economies are not using their resources efficiently, so they are within the boundaries. But outside boundary is not possible for any country. Yes, we can move this curve out with help of change in technology, with the help of improvement in our infrastructure or capital accumulation. So that's a basic idea we want to discuss with production possibility boundary. Now we also in this chapter is discussing three or four fundamental questions that economics always try to answer. And the question first is what to produce and how to produce. So this is the first, what to produce and how. It is important. Like every one of us is deciding that I want to become an accountant, I want to become a marketing manager, I want to become a lawyer, I want to become a doctor. So what we are trying to produce a person with this skill set. So this is our decision. Similarly, the farmer is deciding whether they have to grow a soya bean or wheat or rice or cotton. So that's again their decision. And the manufacturer is also deciding whether they have to produce cars, they have to produce computers or other machineries, right? So they're making decisions. So every one of us, individuals, businesses, as well as the economies are deciding what to produce. But the second question, which is related to it, how? If you want to become an accountant, what you have to do, you have to do your undergrad, and then you have to sit in the CPA exam, then you become an accountant. Similarly, for doctors, you have to do undergrad and then join a medical school, and then after that you become a doctor. So this is the way that you can become a doctor or you can become an accountant. Similarly, farmer knows that they have to plow the field and then put the seed and then fertilizers, watering, all these things process, then it becomes your crop ready. Car manufacturers know that process, but that processes are possibly different. Why it is possibly different? Because in some ways we are more emphasizing on machines or a capital, and in some ways we are more emphasizing on labor. So that's a combination that is possible, that we can produce the thing, but with the different combinations. So this is the way that we answer the question of how. The resource allocation determines the quantity of various goods that are produced. So we allocate different resources to produce what we want to produce. What determines which goods are produced and which ones are not? It is at every level of the society, like a household, then at business level or a firm level, and then at a government level, and then at an overall country or a region, and then world. So we have to make this decision. Should government intervene to channel resources in a particular direction? So sometimes there is a possibility that government gives some incentives in order to channelize the resources. Like if we are right now, we are facing a challenge, like we are short of doctors, nurses. So the governments are trying to incentivize, and we see that the provinces are giving different incentives so the doctors from other provinces can come here and serve them. So this is the way that we have to intervene, or a government sometimes intervene in that. Now, we also have to decide what to consume. What determines the distribution of national total output among its people? So these are the questions we have to answer under what is consumed and by whom. That's again what we have to consume and by whom, because if government impose restrictions on imports, so many things which we are eating right now is not possible to eat. So that's a national decision that, okay, we want to allow these products to come and we eat. What gets a lot and who gets a little and why? So this is also decided in economics, that who is consumed more and who is consumed less. So in a market economy where things are decided, we are deciding the things on the basis of price. So mostly we do these things on the basis of price, like who is ready to pay will get it. But in certain centrally planned economies, the things are not like this, that the people are getting based on the number of people in the family. So they get it like quotas or some rations or something like this. Should government care about this distribution of consumption? And if so, what tools do they have to alter it? So that's just, I gave you an example. Like in a free economy, the markets are deciding that who is going to get it, and how much they are going to get it. But in centrally planned or in economies where the government is playing a very important or very effective role, so they are going to distribute it. So these are the questions we're going to answer in economics. So will the economy consume exactly the same goods that it is produced? No, it is again the same, that whether we allow the things to come from the other parts of the world that we can consume. So but some economies are closed economies, like an example of North Korea. So they are mostly consuming, mostly, not all, but mostly consuming what they are producing. So that's again a question that we have to deal in terms of economics, that we have to answer whether it is beneficial for our country to import these products and make it possible for our people to consume it or not. So that's again important question. The third one is, why are resources sometimes idle? And we see that there's a lot of wastage, there's unutilized resources in many economies, but the government has no money, or the private sector or the people there, they are not utilizing those resources. So why are resources sometimes idle? So an economy is operating inside its production possibility. So if you bring it again, the production possibility boundary or production possibility frontier, we see that some economies are operating within that boundary, some are operating on that boundary. So that's a difference between the level of their economic development, economic growth, and the standard of living, is that where the economies are operating. Why should government worry about idle resources? So that's why the governments are always worried about idle resources. They want to utilize their resources in order to provide or distribute their benefit to their people, or their those who are affected in that economy. So is there some reason to believe that occasional idleness is necessary for a well-functioning of? Yes, there is a possibility that sometimes we are not utilizing all our resources, and keep some reserves that right now we are utilizing these resources, so these are idle. But it is not possible that and especially after this, we know that environmental issues, we see that it is not good that we use those resources which are there, but if we use them, that create another problem, which is we already facing climate change and all these things. So that's important. Now, in the beginning, as I mentioned, that the economic development, how is it possible? If we move or shift our production possibility frontier outward. So is the production capacity growing? Yes, economies grow, and economies growth reflects through their increase in their GDP, increase in their earning per person, increase in their standard of living, increase in their skill set, their all these things, that the economic growth shift the boundary outward, make it possible to produce more of all goods. So that's why it is important that we have to invest in those things, in those areas there that is possible to shift our production possibility frontier outward. Or so we see here that previously in our first figure, we see that the economies efficiently, not wasting, efficiently operating at A, B, or C. But if we are able to create an environment and make possible of an economic growth, so it is possible that our frontier moves to point E or F. And it is not unattainable. Now, it is not unattainable because it is within our boundary. So production possibility boundaries after growth, that is possible to increase. But at the same time, it is also possible that this curves can shift inward, and that is also due to wars or destruction of resources through wars, through earthquake, through flooding, and all these natural calamities can affect this production possibility frontier to shift inward. Now, we just build up this idea of economics, that what is economics, scarce resources, unlimited wants, opportunity cost, choices, and then we also build up this idea of that we have to answer 4 fundamental questions, that whether we want to shift our production possibility frontier outward, and how we allocate the resources so that we can fulfill the desires and wants as much as possible, or as maximum as possible. Now, we move on to this topic, which is we see that it is important to make at this point of time clear that we will continue as a microeconomics topic. So what's the difference between microeconomics and macroeconomics? So we just discussed four questions. And if I again show you this, what is produced and how? This is the first question. What is consumed and by whom? This is the question. So if we are dealing with microeconomics, so mostly our topics, our discussions and our models and our theories are revolving around these two questions, Or in a simple way, if we are discussing for individuals as well as for businesses, that is micro issue. Whatever the size of the firm or a business is, it doesn't matter, but it is a microeconomics concept. Micro means small, but it doesn't mean that we are just discussing the small businesses. We are discussing the household, which is individual in economic terms, as well as the businesses. And the second question is, why are resources sometimes? The second question is, what is consumed and by? Or it is also decided by the businesses. Now, the third question, why are resources sometimes idle? So this is a question which we answered in macroeconomics, because that's a question which is on the level of country or a region or a world, right? So this is the way. And the fourth one is productive capacity growing. That's again, we calculate the national GDP, we calculate the national unemployment, we calculate the national inflation rate. So these are the things what we calculate on the national or a country level, as well as on the regional and international. And also that we decide, okay, we only use whatever we are producing here, or we can import. So these are all the topics concerned with the macroeconomics. So this is the way that we define it here, microeconomics and macroeconomics. Micro is the study of causes and consequence of the allocation of resources as it is affected by the working of the price system. And question 1 and 2 fall within the realm of microeconomics. Question 3 and 4 falls within the realm of macroeconomics, is the study of determination of economic aggregates in total, in sum of such as total output, unemployment, or employment, and a growth, or inflation. So these are all the things what we discuss in our macroeconomics. So macroeconomics, economy, when we are talking economy as a country, when we are talking economy as a regional or a world level, that's a microeconomic issue. Now, this economy and this world is complex. It's not so simple that we have to discuss, like we discuss a model of production possibility boundary, which we make it so simple. But in reality, the economies are very complex. So we have to see this complexity of modern economics by looking at different topics. So the nature of market economy. Now, before going into detail, we just defined what is market economy, because most of the things what we are discussing is related to market economy. We are discussing in which the things are allocated based on prices. So it's a self-organizing and efficient way of organizing the whole economy as a market economy. And why it's a self-organizing? Because every one of us as an individual, we are making decisions in our best interest, but ultimately it's going to pay to the society. This is what we call it as a self-interest. But the collective outcome is coordinated. Like if I am hungry, I ordered pizza, someone is delivering at home. So this person who is making pizza or delivering pizza is not doing these activities for my service. They are doing this activity for their self-interest. And I ordering the pizza not to serve the pizza maker or the delivery person. I ordered pizza in my self-interest, the pizza maker making the pizza for his self-interest, and the delivery person is delivering the pizza for their own interest. So by this way, you see that we all three are working for our self-interest, but ultimately what is happening that I'm getting pizza, they are getting their profit through pizza, and the delivery person is getting his wages in delivering the pizza. So everyone is doing the work for self-interest, but ultimately the society is getting a coordinated collective outcome. Market economies are also efficient economies. Why? The resources are organized as to produce the waste, goods, and services that people want to purchase. The things are produced based on the market demand, and people are buying. So want to purchase and to produce with the least possible amount of resources, because in the market economy, when there is a competition, inefficiency cannot prevail, because inefficient firms are wiped out. No one can, if let's assume that two businesses working to very close to each other, but independently serving their customers. So if one is selling at a higher price and the other one is selling low price, so definitely the more customers will go to the lower price, and this one who is selling at a high price is not able to sell the product. The reason, but the high price is saying, no, my cost of production is very high, so I cannot compete, I cannot reduce the price. So why your cost of production is high? Because you are inefficient. So you have to be efficient in order to survive. So by this way, efficiency increase in the market economy. So the idea of market economy was presented by Adam Smith. We also call that as the father of economics. And he wrote in his book, Wealth of Nations, The Wealth of Nations. This is an extract from his book. It is not from the benevolence of a butcher, the braver, and the baker that we expect our dinner, but from their regard to their own interest, we address ourselves not to the humanity, but to the self-love, and never talk to them of our own necessities, but of their advantages. So this is again what I just gave you an example of a very similar, like in pizza, ordering pizza. So Adam Smith is saying that massive number of economic interaction that characterize a modern economy are not all motivated by benevolence. So that's a thing that we have to be careful. The nature of market economies, incentives and self-interest. I just explained you that the incentives and self-interests are important in market economies. So individuals generally pursue their self-interest, like I gave you an example of a pizza. Individuals respond to their incentives and why the delivery person is delivering, why the pizza maker is making, because they know that there's a profit and they know that I'm going to get the wages and as well as tip. So these are the people respond to the incentives. Sellers usually want to sell more than price are high, and buyers usually want to buy more when the prices are low. So these are the incentives of a buyer and a seller. So incentives and self-interest are not only the source of motivation, other values also play important. So we are not saying that everyone is just doing things, but there are some passions, there are some ways, other things as compared to the motive. So decision makers and their choices, the three types of decision makers operate in an economy. One is the consumer. I just mentioned when we were discussing the part one, consumption. So consumer, what to buy and how much to buy, that's a consumer's decision. Producers is deciding what to produce and for whom to produce. And the government is playing a role as to to see that the resources are properly used and channelized to the productive use and all these things. So their job is to design the policies in order to promote both, not only beneficial for the consumer, but also beneficial for the producer, and not to favor the producers only. They have to create a balance between the producers and the consumers. And how the markets operate, we see that in a very simple model, we are considering that there are two markets and two players. One is individuals or a household or a consumer, and the other one is firms or a producers. How they interact? They interact through two different markets. One market is market for goods and services. Goods and services produced by the firms, and who is the buyer in that market? Individuals are the buyers in the market. And there's another market which we call it as a factor market. Factor market, who is the seller in this factor market? Individuals. Individuals sell their labor, individuals rent their land, individuals invest their capital, and individuals are ultimately the owners of the firm. So they get the entrepreneur or a profit from there as well. So we see here, without introducing the government role here, we see, let's assume that one person as an individual working in Tim Horton. So they get a salary from there. So what he is selling? He is selling labor to the Tim Horton. The other individual is buying donuts or coffee from Tim Horton. So the other individual is a consumer and they are buying from the producer. So you see here that the circle is completing, like the individualism, buying labor to the Tim Horton, and Tim Horton is buying, selling their donuts and coffee to the individuals, and by this way, the circle is complete. We also see that this market economies, or especially the introduction of money in the economy, make it possible to specialize. So production process, two types of characteristics, specialization of labor. Now, why it is important? Because specialization makes possible to work more efficiently, make it possible to as we know all that nowadays every particular profession or very particular area has a specialist. Like if you go to the doctor, we see that there are different specialists in different organs of the body, and their specialty is that they only focus on that, and they are expert in that. Same is the case with the production workers and all these. So specialization help us to increase the efficiency and the quality. And we use this division of labor in the production process on a specialized task. Like if you go to the industry, you see that some people are doing assembling, some people are doing welding, some people are doing other operations. So the specialization, and by this way, the productivity increase, and we see here. But specialization, like I give you an example of a doctors. So doctors are specialized in their area. So what they get in return, money, and by this way they can buy all other things. So if we are not doing specializations, and every one of us has to do all our requirements by ourselves, like we have to grow our food, we have to produce our clothes, we have to produce our shoes. So how is it possible? Life is and that's why in olden days, about a century or 2, 3, 4 centuries ago, people lived a very simple life because they have to do all these things. But with the invention, or with the introduction of money in the economy, it is possible that people specialize, and by this way they can their living standards improve, and they are getting a lot of things which they don't need to produce. So that's facilitate the specialization and trade. We also right now in this world, after the invention of different steam engines or electricity and all these things, transportation is easy. So by this way, the globalizations increase, and globalization is comprised of 3 areas, like people's movement, goods movement, and capital movement. So these are the things, like when the people are moving from one place to another, or one country to another, or one region to another, that's one aspect of the globalization. The second aspect is that goods are moving, and we see that we are eating a lot of things, we are consuming a lot of things which we are not producing. So it means that it is coming from other parts of the world. And the third aspect is capital is moving. Now we see that people sitting in Shanghai is investing in New York, and people sitting in New York is investing in Shanghai. So it's a capital movement. It is also possible. So that's a globalization, we can say. But globalization has challenges as well, like human rights violations, environmental problems, and production standards. So these are all the issues which are related negatively towards the globalization. So this is all what I want to share in this part. And we continue with some related topics and the other topics in the part 3. And by this way, we're going to finish in 3 parts, the chapter 1 of economics.